I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus. Fuck you too.
If we just want to run into it really quick, I think I want to start by saying my worst nightmares have come true.
Okay.
Which this is gonna be funnier to me than it is to you, but I still think it's gonna be funny because it's relevant. Because I've been laughing about it for 2 weeks. I've been laughing about it for 2 weeks to myself, and I've been waiting to tell you. So you remember in episode 1, which to us just came out, you know, as we're recording this, which is really fun. In episode 1, about halfway, maybe even a third of the way through the story, I kind of stop and I'm just like, man, this is really going the direction of Borrasca, which is one of my favorite earlier stories that I read. I want to say from like episode, I don't fucking know, 104 to like 127 or something. There's 5 or 6, maybe 7 episodes in there where a buddy of mine, Django, and I read this story about these kids who moved to some hodunk western town, and it's really shitty, and all the people there are super rich, but everyone's living in almost like squalor despite how much money they have. And it's really interesting because kids around town start to go missing, and it becomes this kind of coming of age story where the kids are like, we have to find out why my sister's missing, and we have to find out why this and that, and they're, you know, it all sounds like a good old Scooby-Doo tale, except the villain, when unmasked, is just the horrors of adulthood and the horrors of what it means to be a shady government business practice. And that's when I started making jokes about the twist being baby mill. And when the girls are too old to produce children for this infertile town, they throw them into a giant grinder, because of course they do. And that's the plot of Borrasca. I've spoiled it so many times. I hope everyone who's listening, you know, watched or listened to those 7 or so episodes with myself and Django, where we, you know, come to terms with that story and its abysmal sequel all at once. Because the twist is literally like the last part of part 4, I believe, where we're just like, we're finally breaking into the place up in the mountains where the snow comes from, and then we find out like all at once that like the main government official, the main sheriff, and the past sheriff, all 3 of them are responsible for all of the kids in town, because everyone in town is infertile. So they abduct the new girls in town, impregnate them, and then sell the babies to the infertile families that choose to live there. And
Cheery.
And like I said, baby mill. And then, like Kurt, goes right into the grinder. So really great, really fun. Borrasca, for all the people who want to read that nightmare of a story. This is the same author.
Ah. Yeah, see, that means comparatively little to me. But it does mean that the chance of a baby mill is
it means little to you, but there's these moments in the back of my mind where I'm just like, that explains why the author writes this way, and how we're not getting all of the answers we need, and how the part 1 is really good, and then slowly but surely parts 2 and 3 probably aren't going to be as good, and then part 3 kind of gives up the ghost while not really fulfilling any of the wishes of part 1 or any of the mysteries, and how it's all kind of telegraphed, and as we get through part 2, we realize it's almost a completely different story with completely different characters, but they all have the same names, and we're supposed to pretend that they're different people. It's wild how, to me, how this author just like does this shit.
We love to blow our load early, folks. We love to get it over with early. I don't want to tell 3 parts of a story. I want to tell one.
I want to tell one, and then I want to do a sequel a couple years later that just completely rides the coattails of the promises of the first one without delivering on almost any of it. And that's what she did with Borrasca.
Are there years in terms of writing that elapsed, or you just
I assume so. That is unconfirmable, but I don't like to actually do research. The only thing I saw was that the author is the same author from Borrasca. Now I can confirm this. Borrasca was written in the early 2000s. Somewhere, I want to say somewhere before 2010. And then as we were doing the show, somewhere, I want to say 2016, somewhere between 2014, 2016, she did the sequel. And I will say, you get through parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Borrasca, and you find out Baby Mill on part 4, and the kid abandons his friends and flees town because his family is involved in covering up what happened to his sister. And so he doesn't feel like he could trust anyone. His best friend is mortally wounded, and his other friend, which is a girl, also skips town. So he just feels like alone and leaves and just essentially runs away from town. And that's the end of the story. Lo and behold, 5 or so years later, unnamed author decides, I don't like that ending for some reason, even though it's pretty perfect. I'm gonna write almost the worst follow-up sequel ever about how that main character comes back to the town with a bunch of guns and gets revenge on everyone. Kind of like a shitty, heroin-addicted John Wick.
I do like the idea of like novelized John Wick, where you get like 30 pages of, I reloaded very coolly. I shot this guy to my right. I shot that guy to my left.
I think the funnier aspect about it is that they spend so much time talking about how many guns they have that it's actually a plot point about halfway through the sequel that the bad guys know they're coming and steal all of their guns. So they literally, like, the finale is like the main character shows up with like no gun and just like kneels down in front of the main bad guy, and he's just like, yup, I'm here, this is the finale, when really it's like off in the distance someone is like posed with a gun, waiting for the shit to go down. And it's just, it's so melodramatic and bad, and nothing about what makes the rising action of the previous story interesting. And that's where we are right now, right? Like, we've read the precursor fun story full of mystery and intrigue, and now we've entered this kind of banal adulthood where it's just like, I want answers just 'cause, and I'm gonna make decisions that are gonna leave me worse off. Why? Because I can and I need to. Like, the drive for this character to figure out what happened makes sense in an unresolved aspect. But now that she got there and she's actively thwarting the one guy who's been arguably protecting the world from this demon, She's
got
not
pretty well in hand. It seems like.
he seems to have it under control, right? So now we're at this juncture, this fork in the road, where we're gonna see how her decision could be worse or more worse at how she chooses to act in presuming that this person apparently does not know what's best for her or the world, despite the fact that he seems to have a handle and has had a handle for the last
sigils
14
will never
years.
hold. It's like
Under
it's
what
like
pretense? They've been holding just fine. It's been
like
14 years and no one else, like, come on.
It's like the 50-year-old guy that like walks over to like the people working construction and like looks at like some scaffolding and is like, "Oh yeah, it's never gonna hold." And the guy's like, "What?
What are you
Like,
talking
yeah,
about? What experience, what opinion do you why do you think
so sure of himself? Just eyeballing it. Those sigils kind of fucked up, honestly. When you think about it.
It's like the demon doesn't make a move on anyone in a room full of 50, 60 some people during an entire fucking like interview with the guy who owns it. He does an entire fucking TED talk about it. Demon doesn't move an inch, and she gets like real close to it, looks it in the eyes and goes, "I know what you're doing." and then
he's coming with information too. Like I feel like
he's given her every answer she's asked questions to, so it's
she could have applied him for more.
I think what we're going to see is some type of predictable third act twist about his character.
He's evil. He's evil
about his
There's
character.
No way. There's no way.
But at the same time, I think the I know better. The I know better. I don't know. I wanna say like boomer mentality that she has.
What's the basis? Where's she getting it from? Who knows, man? She could at least yeah, dude, her will to succeed.
Her father's ever longing intuition that Toys R Us is going to be a generational company that lasts the ages.
I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe she's just sort of like a sociopath because her dad's like a mega businessman and he is a heritable trait. I don't know, man.
He's instilled with me all of the notions that things that need to exist shall exist despite the exact evidence that they don't. So I know better than you.
I love that. Certainly won't get her killed in this part of the story.
You know what?
It's
not going to, but I want it to.
I think she's fine. It would be really funny if she just got
Didn't we say last time that she's going to get everyone else killed?
I do think, well, one of the bodyguards is absolutely going to get annihilated, right?
Right. Someone's got the kind of, someone's going to be paid to keep an eye on her, right? And she already lifted the key card from him the last chapter. So someone is keeping an eye on her, and they're going to show up and they're going to try to save her. They're going to die because of it. And I love that.
I need dude, I actually can't remember the demon's name because we made fun of it so much.
Grimbus.
I need him.
Just call it Grimbus. That's okay.
I need Grimbus to speak. I don't know. I would say it's like a coin flip.
It's a statue. I don't want it to speak.
The thing is though, I don't feel like we're trending upward, right? So I want us to trend way down.
I would love nothing more than to go down into the deep, dark, satanic bullshit, supernatural creepypasta world. But in my head, this person is this person is ham-fisted, but not that unrealistic. I think it's gonna stay the kind of moves when you're not looking stereotype. I think it's definitely gonna be out for blood, and I do think we're gonna end with where we predicted last time, which is it's gonna choose her to be its new like suitor. Which of course is the right decision, right? Not the multimillionaire guy who's made a business out of keeping this thing under lock and chain, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, well, his sigils were shit, so I want a new owner.
She went to the College of Sigil Art, and she graduated with a BFA in sigil, and
She's a savant,
and she and she knows what Grimbus is up to. Just one look at that slimy fuck, and she says, "I'm on to you," and the rest is history.
All right, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we don't have to fucking sugarcoat it anymore. We could get into it. I feel like you've started every chapter, so you could go ahead and start this chapter too.
Sure. The third portion is titled Death of Deepwoods, PA. So we had just Deepwoods, PA, right? That was the first one. Then Return to Deepwoods, and now Death of.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's
well,
classic.
We've been in Lannenberg for an entire chapter, so I don't even know what Deepwoods is anymore.
Yeah, is that an actual... Hold on.
Doing the research I refuse to, folks. Ramses Vanderslice.
I just need to know, Landenberg? But that's not right, because that's East Pennsylvania. I think Landenberg doesn't exist.
Wasn't it supposed to be Midwest PA?
Yeah, it's like somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's probably just like State College, right?
Because what did they referenced Harrisburg last time?
Yeah, I think it's probably the closest thing we're gonna get to is like State College. So if you're a Penn State fan, this one's for you.
We are.
Oh,
Metaraxis.
We aren't feeling so good. I padded quietly through the dimly lit gift shop, pulling the straps of my backpack tighter over my shoulders, like a security blanket. When I reached the opposite door, I leaned my head against it and tried to calm my rapidly beating heart. Taking several deep breaths, I slid Scott's key card through the blinking card reader and was rewarded with a green flash and another soft click. The creature was right where I'd left it, as still as the statue was pretending to be. Right off the bat, it is crazy that this is just like the second portion of... This is like a Matrix 2 and 3 situation.
This is. That's a really good analogy.
It is just like a continuation of the second story. There is no second and third story.
We had a really good Matrix, and then somewhere along the lines, they said, I'm gonna write a different story with these characters, and it's gonna be really important.
It's like two chapters. Like these are two chapters, not two separate stories. Like it opens up, and it doesn't try to give you like a hook. It just assumes you read the second story, and it's like I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
To like set the scene.
It's a chapter. Yeah.
I don't know. I took my time wandering around the room, my eyes never leaving Jameson Scott's prize exhibit. If the demon was as satisfied and successfully warded as Scott bragged it was, then the creature either wouldn't notice or wouldn't care about my presence. I was starting to hope he was right.
Weren't you sure before you entered this situation willingly?
Also, he like looked at her the whole time. Like he definitely noticed. You already know he noticed.
I mean, she made it sound like he noticed. She walked right up to it and basically said, "Fuck you." Whenever I forgot to tell you the last time I was editing the first part too. Have you ever seen the wonderful holiday film Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Dude, it is a yearly favorite.
It's a yearly classic, right?
I watch it every year. I'm not joking.
So every time I was editing and you and I said the name Jamie, just in my head I kept hearing Arnold.
Jamie!
Jamie! Jamie!
I got you the Turbo Man!
Turbo Man! Turbo Man!
Dude, that movie is so good. I love that Sinbad blows up a group of cops and they play it off like a joke. And none of them die.
Domestic terrorism is a joke. What are you talking about?
He absolutely hands them just a mail bomb.
A bomb, yeah.
That goes off.
Ted Kaczynski, you know? Like, let's just get real about it.
There's a better cut of that film where it just never cuts back to the cops, and we assume
And they're just
they
out
died.
for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And like he really does get arrested at the end. Like like it's not just because he like killed a man and stole his suit and pretended to abduct a child, you know, during the
And
parade.
almost threw the child off
It's
the roof.
because
I don't
he's
know.
killed 9 or 10 people at this point.
He almost kills a child at the end. It's great. I love that movie.
I do too.
Oh man. When I finally came around to face the statue, I approached it slowly and unbuckled the velvet rope with a shaky hand.
Jamie.
I was so close to it now that all I could see when I looked up was the underside of its gigantic head. I suddenly wondered if years of schooling would help me read the words inscribed on the statue's stone platform.
Apparently she didn't go to school for her BFA in sigils.
Well, I mean, it kind of sounds like she did. Like, with years of, I bent down and started to pull up the velvet covering when I heard a quiet scrape above me, like stone on stone. It was a sound I'd heard before in the soundtrack of my nightmare.
What's the soundtrack of your nightmare, Ramses?
Oh, oof. It's probably like, this is like so passe, pop country, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Free
No,
how about
that's
Free
fair.
Fallin' on a loop?
Yeah.
I like Tom Petty, but Free Fallin'.
But that song makes you petty.
It makes me feel bad. What do you have one song?
There
on loop?
was something kind of romantic country bluegrass thing that was on the radio at the office today, and I literally wanted to leave. Like, I wanted to leave. The lyrics were something along the lines of I believe it was like I do, and it was like I love you even when I don't. I do. You know, it's just talking about how like love is eternal when you marry someone, and even during the hard times you still love that person. But as wonderful and as feel good as that message is, fucking annoying song to just hear someone just say I do, even when I don't. And I felt like I had like Parkinson's for a moment, and I just wanted to fucking scream.
Yeah, if it were like just straight bluegrass, it would have been a song about like your wife shooting you in the head and then burying you at back. Which is
She left
something
me
I
for
really
dead.
respect about bluegrass songs.
There's some killer bluegrass. I'm not trying to shit on the genre. I'm just saying specifically the romantic country side of it that came out today while I was at work. I wanted to.
That sounds bad.
I wanted to put a gun in my mouth. Yeah,
It sounds quite bad. Also, reading this paragraph makes me now realize how. So the sigils were under a velvet curtain. I forgot about this. Like the plinth that the statue's standing on is covered by velvet. So she doesn't know. She actually. This is the first time she's seeing them.
I thought the sigils were all around the room.
I think there might be some around the room as well, but the main ones on the plinth are like covered up by.
I'm sure it's a multi. Wouldn't it? It would be daft to not assume that there are multiple layers of sigils. You got your prime sigils, and then you got your backup sigils, and then you got your secondary sigils.
I think it's the whole B movie script under the velvet. That's my guess.
Yeah. Hopefully she picks it up and figures out where the fucking plot's going. What she's fucking doing here.
So I'd been right all along. The statue wasn't dormant. It was a hollow victory. I dropped the velvet and backed away from the statue, trying to determine what had moved. Nothing had changed to my naked eye, but I know what I heard. Bumping against the back wall, I decided to play a wild card. I needed it to move perceptibly if I wanted proof that the thing was still dangerous. I turned away from the demon and faced the wall, using an arm to brace myself. I couldn't believe I was doing this. I pushed all my chips all in. Do you really think I'm scared of you after all these years? I asked quietly, my voice echoing around the room like a gunshot. You're just a piece of rock now, harmless to me. I love quiet gunshots. I asked quietly, echoing like a gunshot.
like the softest lightning bolt you've ever heard. I could just, I can,
like a James Bond silence.
I want to show like a video clip of like a cannon going off, and all you hear is like tissue paper ripping. You know?
Yeah. I held my breath and waited. Nothing. Feeling both disappointed and relieved, I sighed and turned around, dropping the key card, as well as my jaw.
What a fucking chump move.
This
is what happened with the flashlight 20 fucking years ago.
Yep. Though it hadn't made a sound, the statue was now not only facing me, but leaning out, as far off its platform as it could. Its mouth was open and almost imperceptibly growing wider by the second. "You can't leave your platform," I breathed, as much to myself as to the creature. My whole body was shaking, and I was quietly backing up, slowly to the door. I'd gotten what I'd come for. Now it was time to leave. Those sigils are bullshit. They'll never hold. But
what?
You can't.
What do you mean that this is what you came for?
I actually don't know.
Do most people walk into a lion's den and piss off a lion and just say, "That's it, I'm done. Time for you to go back to sleep and for me to get the fuck out of here"?
Yeah, you could eat me. I thought so. All right.
All right, see ya. For the life of me, it's just like big gulps, huh? All right, see you later.
It happened in the breath of a second. In the breath of a second, sorry.
Breathing takes longer than a second, but it's okay.
Yeah, I think she meant to say breath with a D, but it's not.
Yes.
There was a sudden crack as the demon's tail whipped through the air, behind it from one side to the other, as though it were not made of stone but of flesh and blood. The glass encasing it on either side shattered. The makeshift wall behind split in two, and the velvet ropes came crashing down. One of the poles sent a sigil flying across the room. The sigils were bullshit. She knew.
Nice.
Not strong enough. I screamed like I'd never screamed before as the creature's neck seemed to stretch across the room towards me, one of its wards no longer effective. I turned my back on it and ran for the door, realizing too late that the keycard now lay under a heap of rubble. Rubble? From where?
Part of the statue has been broken.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, the makeshift wall behind.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like, I understand now. They've got it in kind of a diorama setup, where it's like three walls of glass and one wall of stone, which is a kind of sick way to display a statue.
I mean, it is really cool.
Now lay under a heap of rubble. I reached the double doors and tried to jerk them open, hoping they weren't locked from the other side. They were.
Duh.
The creature was once again still as stone, everything but its eyes, which followed my every move hungrily. I beat on the door, yelling for security and wondering if I was doomed, and which thought would be my last. In my hysterical panic, I suddenly remembered how I had escaped this fate 13 years before. I stumbled back from the doors as much as I dared, and then ran, shoulder first. They moved, creaked even, but ultimately laughed at my effort. These were no rotten, decaying church doors. Crazed with fear, I backed up to try again, and this time, just as my shoulder reached the door, it opened from the other side, and I went spilling over on top of something hard or someone. He rolled over, and I passively registered that I'd landed on an enraged Bannock. He was standing and pulling me up by the strap of my backpack before the door even closed behind us. Bannock struggled to say something, trying several times, but was too angry for words. I didn't care. I threw my arms around him, just happy to be on the other side of the door. He didn't hug me back. Just for sorry.
Son of a bitch.
He didn't hug me back.
What evil exists in his cold, cold heart?
And waited for me to get off of him. When I finally pulled back, I pulled my hood down and looked him full in the face. He wore a decidedly guarded look for a guard. Did you see Did you see what it did? I asked, pushing hair back from my face. That thing is not dormant at all. Tell your boss that it needs to be moved tonight, if possible. In lieu of a response, Bannock grabbed my arm and headed toward the lobby. Since it was away from the exhibit room, I didn't care. He could take me to jail if he wanted, as long as Jameson Scott. Jamie! What happened here? I'd made my point to him and lived to tell the tale. Or had I?
I was gonna say there's still 28 pages, so...
I suddenly wondered. Honestly, if I'd learned anything in that room, it had been that the creature hadn't forgotten me. The girl that got away. My life was a black
the white
mark
buffalo.
on its record. Yeah. My life was a black mark on its record. An insult. And I had gone into its lair and challenged. What did I think was going to happen? I don't know, that's a fucking great question.
Good question. We've been asking ourselves for a couple weeks now.
Of one thing I was abruptly certain. It wouldn't stop until it had my life. The creature would burn through 100 cities, perhaps 1,000 to claim me.
All right, don't get so self-important.
It's so crazy. She's just like, one thing was for sure. I'm the most important person in the world. It had told me all of this somehow, hadn't it? I suddenly realized my mistake. The creature had been dormant when I'd arrived in Landenberg, as it had been dormant 13 years before in Deepwoods. And once again, I had awoken it from a harmless slumber. How many would pay the price this time? How many people had to die before the end? Finally understanding the true cost of my arrogance, I let out a muffled cry and faltered, wondering with revulsion if perhaps I should just go back and face my fate. Wait, I coughed, trying to pry the guard's fingers from my arm. Bannock suddenly spun me around and pinned me against the wall, his arms braced on either side of my head. My eyes snapped up at him in shock, and I recoiled from what I saw there.
What the fuck are you doing here?
I was just... I was...
Why did you come back, Katie? After all of these fucking years.
My objection died in my throat. But it couldn't be. It wasn't possible, and yet... somehow it was. My legs gave out under me, but Jamie caught me on the way down. He was older than he should have been, and stronger than I'd ever thought the skinny kid from Middlesbrough could be. But his eyes hadn't changed, and it was Jamie all the same. Even his expressions were familiar to me, I realized. What I'd first thought was seething anger was actually just barely controlled fear. Had the creature killed me after all? Was I swirling in the dark abyss with Jamie and all the others who had been taken?
All right, so classic misdirection.
All right.
We
got me.
bring in a character called Jameson Scott, who looks older than he actually is, and we all naturally assume that because we never learned Jamie's last name, that this was Jamie. But no, we're introduced to a character whose name was Bannock, and never at one point in the first chapter did we learn that Jamie's last name was Bannock. What great storytelling we have here. I didn't see it coming. You didn't see it coming. No one could have arguably had seen it coming.
Yeah, just as likely that the Bannock is also the statue, I think, at that point, because we've gotten like no description of him. We've
heard about his angry eyes and large hands for probably, I don't know.
Yeah, about that.
20 pages.
Jamie? My voice broke over his name.
Christ, Katie. You need to leave now and never come back. Hell, leave the country if you can. He'll never stop looking for you now.
Oh, I'm glad the delusion is shared. I couldn't.
You're too important. You need to leave.
He's not going to come after me. I've been around him the whole time, and he actually just doesn't care.
I've been working for the guy that controls him, and I've been fine for 14 years, but fuck, shit.
I know that we both awoke him, but he actually doesn't care about me at all.
To me, I'm like a simple appetizer. Mozzarella sticks. You are the chicken parmesan of his eye. Jamie, are you really hungry? I'm starving.
I couldn't register what he was saying. Who wouldn't? Leave what country? Jamie. How was Jamie here? He kept me pinned there, his hold rigid, his eyes desperate, and a little bit pissed off. Jamie, I tried again. How did I
know you'd come here? When has the word no ever kept you from something you wanted?
No, I mean, how
We'll take her from here. Oh, shit, this is Mr. Scott, okay. We'll take her from here, Bannock.
A voice behind him interrupted me. Jamie slowly turned to face the 3 men, only one of which I recognized.
This one has been too much trouble. I want her gone.
Jamie returned with ice in his voice.
Mr. Scott here says we're not to take orders from you anymore, Bannock. Give her here.
Jamie suddenly pushed me out of the way, and I went sliding across the floor, the wind knocked out of me. A rushing filled my ears as I tried desperately to catch my breath. When my hearing came back, Jamie was yelling at me.
Go! Go!
Jamie!
Jamie!
Go! I looked back to see 2 men down, and Jamie struggling with a third. Jeez, Jamie's ripped. I remember when you said that it got kind of John Wick in the portion of.
I don't want to talk about it.
So got 2 guys in the space of what had to have been.
The more similarities I find, the more fucking one note.
I looked back to see 2 men down, and Jamie struggling with the third. Why was he struggling? He killed 2 guys in 1 second. My sneakers struggled for purchase on the slick marble floor, and when they finally found it, I was up and running through the lobby on the wings of adrenaline. I suddenly heard a sound like a book slamming onto a table. I spun around just as Jamie went down, clutching his shoulder. He fell on top of the man he'd been struggling with, who was now unconscious. Blood began to drip over his fingers, and I went sliding across the floor as I tried to stop to double back for him. This is the world's slipperiest floor.
Why did they clean the marble so early after closing time?
This is a guy just, while this is happening, just buffing in between them.
Headphones on, listening to some Take On Me by Aha.
Absolutely. Jamie started to say something, but passed out mid-sentence. His hand dropped from his shoulder, and thin tendrils of blood began to race each other down his chest.
Well now, that is impressive.
Jameson Scott stepped forward from where he'd been leaning against the door.
And I'm not impressed by much at my age. The age of 24.
With the normal age of 24 that I am. I stumbled over to Jamie, but Scott stopped me with a single click of his gun. He walked over and rested a foot on Jamie's chest. Froze where I was.
I saw you take my keycard, you know. You played the role perfectly, in fact. Everything went according to plan. Except him.
Scott kicked Jamie in the ribs, but he didn't make a sound. What do you want? I spat.
Your name came up. I want you to die.
Why? Scott gave a pretentious scoff.
This isn't a James Bond movie, Miss Ross. I don't need to explain myself to you.
But you will, won't you? You want me to know how clever you are. I was playing with fire, but why not? We were far beyond caution now.
No, literally, I just told you I'm not going to do that, so you can just go die now, please. Oh, shit.
You wish that he actually would stick to that. You know he's gonna explain himself.
You're quite bright. In what fucking world? There might have been a place for you on my staff if only things had been different.
Don't flatter yourself. Why then? Why are you giving a demon what it wants? Didn't it kill someone you loved?
My daughter, actually. And why? It's my gift to a world I was born too late into. You know, I was 50 by the time the internet was invented. 50! What sad irony, then, that I was a technological genius. But what universe does love its sick jokes? Do you realize I've single-handedly guided the history of modern technology? It's true. I'm Bill Gates. But I reached my 70s, and then my 80s, and my vision began to fail. My hands would shake, and I'd forget coding. I could barely manage to read at one point.
Dude, I can't believe this. I can't believe that the main villain's motivation is, I really loved the internet, but I was an old man.
But I was too old for it.
I kept forgetting coding.
I wanted to make Reddit.
Oh, fuck, Jesus Christ.
Twitter is but a thing of the past.
Okay. On your list of potential reasons he could have, like, in your mind, what you were thinking for his whole villain spiel, how did this...
Is it as simple as just saying, like, world domination, power, immortality, any of that shit?
I would have preferred that.
I think we all would have. That's the point.
That would have been a normal, like a relatively normal thing.
I'd made millions, but I hadn't even started. I decided the world couldn't afford to lose me yet. So I tracked down every piece of ancient lore I could that may help me reclaim my youth. Most of it was rubbish, of course, but I was desperate. I'd almost given up until Grimbus found me. I knew what he was as soon as I saw him. I'm monologuing now. This is the third paragraph.
Yeah.
So I bought him and warded him using the BFA sigils I'd read about in my ancient text at Sigil School. Of course there was an expensive trial and error period. Many of my staff were killed in the process, but eventually we discovered the right sigils. The first and the wrong sigils by process of elimination. The first thing I did was track down the man whose name was etched into the granite at Grimbo's feet. I presented him for sacrifice, and I was rewarded. That was 6 years ago. I adopted a new name and started a new company. All was going well until your name came up about 4 years ago, and it was only 2 years between those things that I mentioned, and those 2 years were great. And now it's been 4 years of shit in Lannenberg. It really stumped me because Grimpo only desires those who are connected to him. Somehow.
What?
I didn't know who you were. And you're far from the only Caitlin Ross in the world. I tried several other Grimbones. Would take them, but for certain... I did try several other Caitlin Rosses. There was Kate Ross, Katie Ross, Kit Kat Ross...
Moss. That was a rough
Kate
one.
Moss. The world doesn't miss her. She's fine. Grimbones would take them for certain, but the name never changed. I was Desperado. So you can imagine how happy I am that you showed up on my doorstep. God is telling me that he approves of my methods. But what I mean to say is, Grimbonius wants to eat you. And I must stay alive for the good of the internet. And my company is in the middle of making revolutionary surgical robotics. For Christ's sake! I will take a few lives to save 1 million or possibly 2 million billion. I hate this.
Dude, it's so much better than I thought it was gonna be.
I sit down with you, I'm like, oh, this first part sounds really cool. I'm really excited to read this with you. Maybe this will be as good as the showers, right, Ramses? It'll be really good.
I think it's me. I have a sort of curse.
No, it's not you. It's not you. I wish I could give you as the accolades I gave you last time. They've gone to your head. I wish all that you could manifest is shitpost, but honestly, it's just this author. This author is Jump the Shark, like the author. Like this
Do we think-
author has nuked the fridge like her entire career, and it's okay. I like the stuff she writes. We're being critical here because it's fun to be critical. We are the armchair experts of the creepypasta world. That doesn't mean I don't like her. That doesn't mean I don't like what she writes. That doesn't mean I don't think she's talented. In fact, I think Borrasca has actually been published. So, you know,
yeah?
I believe so. I believe there's a paperback version of it. So
I think that she is trapped in a sort of modern Scheherazade situation, and she is forced to continually write stories or be killed. And so she's like, "Look, man,
she does it to feed.
The first part of it was good. That was my good idea, but I got to pad this shit out, or they're gonna get me."
The tantalizing first act is something I'm definitely coming to terms with recently. I saw Long Legs. I think I might have brought this up last time. Long Legs did the same fucking thing, where it has this really powerful first act, and then as the movie progresses, it just goes in the complete opposite and worst possible destination, and it leaves me so disappointed, because I think there's a couple like trails of thought when it comes to writing horror, right? I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I'm just going to say I'm an expert at reading it. So I'm allowed to make assumptions and generalizations. Critical discussion, right?
Sure.
Trails of thought. You could be predictable. There's nothing wrong. It's a tried and true thing. The entire industry is made off of being predictable. We want to see the characters go into the basement. We want to see the characters get, killed in terrible and horrifying ways. There's nothing wrong with being, I don't know, the Conjuring of creepypasta. That's fine. But then there's this, like, subversive rug pull that some people are really able to finesse when they write stories like this. M. Night Shyamalan's track record, we talked about him in the first part. His track record's not perfect, but for the early part of his career, he really did flawlessly do the rug pull a couple times.
Right.
But then we have option 3, which is go nuclear. Like, nuke the fucking fridge, go ham, go hard, no one left alive, go in the worst possible direction because it's the last thing the people expect. Well, I'm now starting to expect it.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I'm now starting to expect it, because it's not the easiest method, but when people can't pull the rug pull, it's almost the only option.
Yeah, it's like watching one of those people that tries to pull the tablecloth out without knocking all the glasses.
And then knocking just everything.
Just smashing every single dish on the table.
Yeah, and sometimes, let me tell you, it's really cool to see that too.
Oh, it's very funny. Especially if they try to keep kayfabe up and just keep smiling.
Yeah.
I couldn't have dreamed that this guy was going to monologue about how it was just so sad that he couldn't code anymore. But I love that. I really love that.
My eyes got tired. My prescription glasses were thick.
I forgot.
The night was a balmy
coding.
8:30 p.m. and I was ready for my Betty buys.
I also love. Okay, so you've made a character a computer genius, but you haven't done like 3 minutes of research about like what is something a computer genius would say? Would they say, "I'd forget coding"?
Also, not defend me on this stretch of logic. I don't think Elon Musk or Bill Gates or arguably fucking Steve Jobs were going around showing people demon statues as a side plot to their career.
No. No, also, most of them don't code. Most of them are just like business.
That's fair.
Business moguls,
Gates probably hasn't
coded
coded in 40 fucking years.
That's what I'm saying. You didn't need to
You don't need
coding,
to.
man?
You don't need to after a certain... Like, once you find success, you really don't need to worry about the day-to-day. You just can kind of rule from your position.
Zuckerberg hasn't coded in, like more than a decade. He's like 40.
And he's the guy who did it for fun.
Yeah.
Out of all of them.
For sure.
If Mark fucking Zuckerberg opened up a museum exhibit tomorrow in, like, Massachusetts about Satan statues, I would be there today.
I mean, he's perfectly poised to do it. If Elon did it, I would be like, this is
yeah,
kind of
it feels wrong saying like Musk or Gates or Jobs, because they were actual businessmen. But you're right. Zuckerberg he could channel the autism in a specific way to say, I'm going to do this.
And he also just, like, of all of them, like, I know there's, like, conspiracy theories revolving around all of them being lizard people, but of all of them, Zuckerberg is the most uncanny human being. He's so strange, and it's even funnier now that he's, like, leaned really hard into being, like, a normal guy. That, like,
yes, he's like, I'm normal man, look at my facial hair now.
He's only gotten weirder, you know? Like, it's only gotten more uncanny. I'm very excited to see what he's like when he's, like, 60.
Yeah, he's gonna start sacrificing people to a statue and complaining about the internet. You know, I think we can see it coming.
Furious at his arrogance, I struggle to keep my voice level. Don't lie to yourself, Scott. You're no hero. You're just an old man afraid to die.
I never said I was a hero. I said I've been sacrificing people for the better half of a decade. Are you listening to anything I'm saying? No, Caitlin. I'm just a man refusing to grow old. What can I say that hasn't already been said in 6 paragraphs? I'm determined. I'm resilient. I want to be young until the day I die.
That's not resilience, that's vanity. Vanity is what you're buying with my life.
Kumase kumasa. There's always a price for social change, Miss Ross. And today, the cost is you. Oh, but you look upset. Don't be afraid of death, my dear, not for such a worthy cause as my skin and bones cling to my supple body.
I'm not afraid of death, and I don't care about your diabolical plan. I just want you to get to the goddamn point. I'm gonna read the rest of her lines like John Wick. Jamie's breathing was growing shallow. My voice dripped with animosity.
As you wish.
Scott nodded at something behind me, and then darkness. When I woke, I was lying on a cold marble floor, slippery, so it was sliding.
Freshly cleaned.
My brown mess of hair fanned out underneath me, stiff with dried blood, and my wrist bound. I sat up slowly and tried to brush the hair out of my eyes. I knew where I was. There was no point turning around to see it, but I did anyway. It wasn't the fact that my name was engraved at the base of the statue that the velvet cloth had covered. It wasn't the wards, which had been moved from the demon's feet to the doors and walls of the room. It wasn't even the fact that the demon's head was turned to be looking directly down at me. No, what terrified me most in that room was the man leaning against the wall, hands bound behind his back, as condemned to death as I was. The blood on his chest had dried and he was awake, his eyes only partly open, watching me with an unreadable expression. You look like shit, Jane, I said matter-of-factly as I pulled myself up to lean against the base of the statue, the only thing nearby.
I've been busy,
he said, his mouth curling up into a sarcastic smile. I'm sorry I killed you. Again. I tried to smile back, if only to keep the tears at bay.
Nah, we'll survive this.
I admire your optimism, but ground. I rested my elbows on my knees and sunk my head into my arm.
I lived through it once before, didn't I?
Yeah, about that. How?
Yeah, well, about a week after you left, things started disappearing around town. People, buildings, even roads. No one remembered them but me. And then one day I woke up in an empty house. My dad and my brother were gone, so I fled to the only place I knew was safe.
The damn church. Jamie shrugged.
I figured it was the one place that the demons would never go, right? I mean, I don't know how long I lived there, but it felt like years. I slept at the church, traveled to nearby towns to steal what I needed to live, and then, one day the towns were gone. All of them.
As he spoke, I watched him, memorizing every detail of his face. Even when I was nothing, I hoped something was left of me, a little piece that would remember him.
So I decided to find the thing. My dad was gone, my mom didn't remember me, and the only person who knew I was alive lived 1,000 miles away. So I went from town to town until I found it. And it was just there. It was just standing there in the center of town. No one even thought it was weird. I was a pro at drawing sigils by then, since I'd spent so much time at Deepwood, and
Jesus
I went to
Christ.
I got my BFA at sigil school. And
It's like it's like the town fucking industry. They're all working at the sigil factory.
I found the sigil capital of Pennsylvania. I became mayor. They have to be perfect work, right? So I tried to ward it, and it would take a little while, but the statues always managed to break them after a certain point. It's just natural that they would break something that, its sole purpose is to make sure that it doesn't break. I'd find it a little further from its base every night. But people didn't seem to notice that the statue had moved, and what they did notice, however, was some kid loitering around town. And since I looked older and the town was getting wary of me anyway, I joined the local police force and spent my nights on patrol downtown, keeping an eye on the thing, reapplying sigils. Occasionally I would wake up outside and I'd know my wards had finally failed, and then I'd have to track it to a new town and start all over.
So the townsfolk were like, yo, there's this weird homeless kid who's hanging around.
Let's make him sheriff.
He could be a cop.
Yeah.
The cops famously love to have members that they are
Ramses, out of all of the leaps of logic in this story, I don't see what you're getting at here.
Oh man, he went to the store and bought the police outfit, and he's a policeman now.
I went to police school and sigil school at night.
Damn, he double majored. Why didn't they just kill you?
It's the question of the day. I asked myself that until a few years ago when your name came up. I think it needed me to find you. Ironically, in the end, it didn't need me at all. You just came on your own volition anyway.
I thought about that. I wondered for the first time if I actually had come back to prove myself sane. Had I really intended to kill it? Or prove I'd been right? Or had it actually been about Jamie all along?
It took a long time and a lot of towns, but I finally figured out what I was doing wrong. A sigil will slow it down, but in order to stop it, the ward needs to be blessed. And not just by anyone, but by the second son of a Roman Catholic, preferably from Assisi, Italy, or at least near some region close to there. Don't ask me how I figured that out. That would be way too interesting to put together the process of elimination.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't ask me why. So what happened to your second son from Assisi, Italy?
Yeah, he disappeared.
Shit. Push my hair back again with my bound wrists.
I want you to keep reading the story and we'll just keep doing the conversation.
That works.
Yeah, but by that point I was sheriff. I was promoted. I'd been a city over. I came back to town to find my exit missing, and the statue was gone. And that is when Jameson Scott had got a hold of it.
Oh, I lost it. And that's why you were protecting him?
Oh, you think I was protecting him? No. No, he was transparent about his intentions from the start. He monologued and everything, and I was just,
Yeah.
I applied to be on his detail, but I was denied. No name, no experience. I only got on because I was able to take out all of his bodyguards in a sort of hand-to-hand combat trial.
Yes.
And, I guess all those trips through the police academy finally paid off.
All those trips? How many times? I guess, so he did this police thing in multiple different towns?
I guess you would have to if each of the towns kept disappearing. What records would you have to prove
That's
that you...
really funny.
I'm doing the thinking that the author isn't.
I love he's grinding the police academy to get his fucking policing stat up. Agreed. How does Jameson Scott know more about the statue than we do?
Because he had almost 80 people on his staff who did nothing but travel every corner of the globe looking for any scrap of information on Grimbones. We aren't the first ones to live to tell the tale of Grimbus Prime. Just the first to stick around. I did all I could to keep people away from that thing. A name would be engraved on it one day and a new name the next, and it took me a long time to figure out what he was doing. It shouldn't have taken him a long time to figure out what he was doing, but it
Didn't he
did.
learn all about this thing?
Shush. And by then, your name came up. And he's become obsessed with you, and I was damn sure I wasn't going to let him find you.
Well, that explains why you were mad when you saw me.
Mad? Katie, I've never been more terrified in my life. I've spent years leading him down false paths, only to have you present yourself like a lamb for slaughter.
I'm sorry, Jamie. I wasted all your fucking time. You spent 13 years trying to protect me. I spent all that time trying to forget you.
Well, it's no less than I wanted for you. To forget about this place and me.
I heard the familiar stone on stone sound from above me. Is there any chance of reasoning with him? Your boss, I mean.
Not likely.
His voice was dark.
He fed his own daughter to that thing.
He what?
For the greater good.
God, Jamie, I don't want to die. I don't want you to die.
You're not gonna die. You're not gonna die here. Not today.
I ignored his optimism. Why do you think it hasn't killed us yet? Jamie sighed.
It's trying. Scott kept a close watch over his demon, but I managed to get one thing by him. That statue is sitting on a sigil the size of a Mini Cooper. It's not blessed, but it is big.
You're a brilliant bastard, James Harris.
James Carrot.
Was that his name? Did we ever know that?
I don't care. Call him James Carrot.
Yeah, he's a carrot. You're a brilliant bastard, James Carrot.
Oh no! Oh, I'm a carrot. Well, I've sure had a lot of time.
I heard a clicking sound, and Jamie stood up, tossing a now worthless pair of handcuffs on the floor. He walked over me and stood me up, using whatever tool he had picked his own cuffs with to free me. I heard them click, but when they fell to the floor, all I heard was the loud grinding of stone on stone again. It was louder, and longer this time.
Don't look at it, Katie. Don't look up.
Jamie! I breathed, terrified. Suddenly, a face appeared behind Jamie, but this time, I wasn't hypnotized by it. Jamie saw the color drain from my face and grabbed me.
Follow me, now!
He yelled, pushed me in front of him to the gift shop door. I heard more movement from behind us and turned around while Jamie typed a long sequence of numbers into the card reader keypad. The creature had turned its head and was watching me. It was alive as it ever had been. The statue took a step off its platform, which shook the museum floor. Its movements were silent yet fluid and flexible. like a cartoon on mute.
I like that. That's actually really cool.
Jamie.
Working on it.
Suddenly the keypad flashed green and the door clicked open. Jamie drew a black marker out of his pocket and drew a long line down the middle of the sigil, negating it. What are you doing?
Just trust me.
Jamie pushed me out the door. We slammed it behind us and tore across the gift shop to the exit. The door was locked. I turned around to tell Jamie as much, but he was already hurling a table through the window. It shattered just as I saw the door on the other side of the room begin to bend as it was pushed from the other side. How did you unlock that door? I asked as we ran across the parking lot.
Scott isn't the only one who's good with programming.
Jamie yelled back. What?
I also went to programming school.
I went to the punch a lot of numbers into the keypad school. Gets you in anywhere.
It's my favorite stereotype. It's the several key clicks. I'm in.
I tacked into the mainframe. My God. I followed him to a black Jeep sitting at the edge of the parking lot. We jumped in just as a loud bang echoed across the asphalt. God only knew what it meant. What do you mean God only knew? It's the... Okay. What could it be?
The door opened. God only knows who opened the door.
The beginning chords to Highway to Hell blasted from the speakers. Why not? I shrugged as I turned it up. Jamie nodded and peeled out of the parking lot. We tore through town like the devil himself was chasing us, which wasn't far from the truth. Woo-hoo. It was early. First rays of sunlight streaming through the trees as we hit the highway. We hadn't gone more than 5 miles when a white SUV appeared behind us. We followed it at a considerable distance. Why aren't they overtaking us?
Because this is what he wants. Scott knows where we're going.
Where are we going?
A Deepwood.
What? Fuck, I said as I leaned back in the chair. But I trusted Jamie, so I didn't object. Want to take the creature days to make it there? I asked, eyeing Jamie's speedometer, which was at 90.
It doesn't always move like that. It sometimes travels on another plane, like a jet plane. Sometimes it travels. Sometimes it travels main cabin economy.
It's tough for the people that sit next to him.
I can't explain it. Everything changes and warps around that thing, even time. That's why I'm about 8 years older than I should be. What?
What? I don't understand. She's just throwing shit at the wall. She's like,
by the way, I gotta let you know that I'm older than you, and that makes me more attractive to you now.
Absolutely.
Before, I was just 12. Now I'm older than 12.
He suddenly whipped off the road and headed for the tree line. The truck behind us did the same, and we maneuvered randomly through the trees, though I figured Jamie knew exactly where we were going. I held on for dear life and watched him expertly navigate the almost hostile terrain or downed trees and deep ditches.
What if the demon is the one driving the white SUV?
That would be so cool. He's on like a motorcycle.
I would love that for him.
How? You live in Pennsylvania, and I live in Pennsylvania. If you jackknifed into the woods on almost any Pennsylvania road, how far do you think you could drive? Even if
3.5 feet.
Yeah, you just can't do that. You just hit a tree. There's too many trees.
In fact, when I didn't mean to do that once, I almost went off like a 15-foot ledge and almost like totaled my car. So you really got to be careful that you don't do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm just like trying to picture the forest that she's imagined in her mind, where it's like a tree, 20 feet, another tree, like a very nice sparse forest. How far? I asked after 10 minutes.
6 miles, but you know how time is out here.
I don't know how time is out here.
Tell me.
I thought it was near the statue. Is it also just out here? Did I ever? 4 minutes, yet somehow 6 miles later we bumped into... Oh, I guess, in the first story that did happen too.
Oh yeah, time was weird. Yeah.
4 minutes, yet somehow 6 miles later we bumped over a set of railroad tracks and arrived at the damn church, over which looked smaller and more impotent than it did in my nightmare. The front door opened easily this time, and I gave an involuntary shudder when I saw the Jesus statue, looking more judgmental now than ever before. The trapdoor was open. You lived here for years and you never closed the trapdoor?
Believe me, I tried.
Jamie grabbed my hand and guided me to the hole in the floor.
We have to go down there.
Fuck no. Snatched my hand away.
It's the only way this will end, Katie.
You gotta be kidding me, I muttered as I took the first reluctant step down. Wait, I suddenly stopped. You said it wouldn't ever come back here.
It would. For you.
Jamie followed behind me and took the stairs down. One shaky step at a time. Jamie followed behind me, flashlight in hand. I didn't see it until right before we reached the bottom. The demon was already here waiting for me. Stood in the same position we'd first found him in 13 years before, but this time, its face was not stone. The demon's eyes swept across the room in a wide arc. His tail was wrapped around the bottom of the staircase. If he was already down here, why couldn't we stay up there? I whispered.
He wasn't.
There were no wards to protect us now, and nowhere to run. I couldn't help thinking this was a bad plan. Well, he's here now, so let's go.
We can't, Katie. If we leave now, he will too.
Well, then what's your plan, Jamie?
I'm gonna take my lamps to your house, and you're gonna take your lamps to my house.
I hope that he kills Metaraxis just like fist fighting. It's just because he's trained so hard.
Now, Katie, now comes the rock show.
Gonna tombstone this demon until it dies.
Just mankind off the fucking chapel.
Jamie said nothing, just stared at the demon, who was now staring back at him. Suddenly I felt something like a tug, pit of my stomach. I stepped back and then it happened again. I looked up into the creature's eyes, which had moved to mine, and suddenly realized what was happening. It was another tug, harder this time. I felt my mind, not my body, being pulled toward the demon's head. A long black tongue jutted out to welcome me, and the creature's mouth began to widen. So this was it. The nothingness. The demon's mouth was so wide I could have simply walked into it if I had a body. The blackness started to close in on all sides, creating a sort of tunnel vision, and then, in a violent jolt, I was snapped back into my body. A perfect sigil drawn on my chest in black marker. The creature screamed an ear-splitting sound, and Jamie flung me over his shoulder before I had even reestablished my bearing. We were to the top of the staircase in under a minute, the demon still emitting a deafening wail.
I'm sorry,
he yelled.
I was sure it would come for me first.
Why?
After 14 years.
I was sure it would come for me, the guy who's just been hanging around it forever.
I've been around for a while.
Maybe one day Metaraxis will notice me. We burst into the nave, and Jamie, seeing our company before I did, pushed me across the altar towards the crucifixion, which I took out as I fell. Scrambled back, kicking it away from me as I did.
Fucking hate that creepy Jesus.
He's just really fucking for no reason. By the time I looked up, Jameson Scott was standing in front of the trapdoor, a gun to Jamie's head. His men hung back, eager to get involved at a word from the boss.
Get back down there, Miss Ross.
My bad. Fuck you. My last word was drowned out by a loud cracking sound that echoed through the church as the spiral staircase came crashing down below.
Katie, don't!
Jamie caught a knee to the ribs, some of which I was pretty sure were already broken. I scrambled back further. There's no staircase now. There's no way to get down there.
Oh, sure there is.
Scott sneered. His hired men laughed.
You're going to die either way. At least this way, you'll save his life. Crimponius is trapped down there for the time being, so it's to the cellar you must go. Perhaps you shouldn't have injured him by breaking his bond mid-feed. Katie,
Jamie growled.
don't be fucking stupid. Just run.
Fuck no, Jamie. I didn't leave you in this place then, and I won't leave you now. She kind of did.
She
right?
kind of did.
I'm just rewriting history. Fuck no, Jamie. I didn't leave you then, and I'm not gonna leave you now. It was time to pay my dues. I stood up to walk to the edge of the trapdoor. Perhaps, if fate was kind, I would die when I hit the floor 30 feet below. I looked up at Jamie, intending my last words to be for him. I knew the moment he realized that. Jamie jerked his body forward and threw himself and Scott into the dark hole between us. No! I screamed as Scott's men scattered out the door. I skid over to the side of the hole, tripping over the smaller statue in the way.
I'm here.
Came a pained groan from Jamie, who was just barely clutching onto the side. Thanking every deity I knew of, I pulled him out of the hole and back into the nave. His wound was bleeding fresh blood, and I knew he didn't have much time. I laid him on his back, and as he started to slip into unconsciousness, applying pressure to his shoulder, a moan came from the trapdoor beside us.
Help me. Please. Please help me. I'm hurt.
So Scott had survived the fall. I grimaced and pulled myself over to the edge to peer into the darkness below. I could see nothing but the creature. I could see nothing, but the creature was no longer screaming. My blood began to boil as I let Jameson Scott wail away his swan song.
Please. It's staring at me. I can feel it. Please. Name your price. I'll pay it. Just save me.
I laughed. Aha! Oh, now why would I do that, Mr. Scott? This is what you wanted after all. You get to be young until the day you die. Suddenly the trapdoor slammed shut, Jamie standing over it as the entire building began to shake. The edges around the door grew bright, molten metal before darkening brown out. Will it hold? I yelled to Jamie over the increasingly loud earthquake. Is it blessed?
Some say by God himself.
I'd say that counts, I said to myself as I tried to stand up on the violently shaking floor. Jamie hoisted me up next to him and ran for the doors as a bit of ceiling began to cave in. The door to the church swung open of its own volition before we got there and slammed shut behind us. What is this fucking Beauty and the Beast ass church? The church came down in a butt of dust and splintered wood. A butt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
Came down.
I've never heard that before, but let's, I'm
gonna look it up later. I'm curious. I might just be ignorant. Came down in a butt of dust and splintered wood. When all had settled, Jamie was barely conscious. I walked him to the car and him to the passenger seat. He was out before I'd shut the door. I took one last look at the pile of rubble before climbing into the driver's seat and starting the car. I followed the same train tracks home that got us out of Deepwoods when we were kids. I made it to the road without ever looking back. I can tell you exactly how long Jameson Scott lived. 4 days. By the dawn of the 4th day, he and all of his inventions abruptly disappeared from me. There were a few I was sad to see go, like the rise of inductive charging and eyeglass. You would have loved eyeglass, and you probably did, honestly. Contact lenses that were actually cameras, they put GoPro out of business. I could never afford it, but you may have had one. I missed those YouTube videos. Jamie spent a month recovering from his gunshot wound. After he was released from the hospital, we spent a few weeks weighing our options. In the end, we decided to hunt down people like Jameson Scott and the powers they wielded. You don't know about them, and if we have our way, you never will. Due to Jamie's time with Scott, we have some good leads We have a lot of blood on our hands to atone for, and a lifetime to do it. Deepwood is dead. Only Jamie and I even know where it is, so the town dies with us. I wouldn't try to find it if I were you. I've changed a lot of details. Names of towns, names of roads. Perhaps even when this all happened. I won't tell you, and you don't want to know anyway. Somewhere out in 100-mile sea of trees and dirt lies the demon's door. It's still there, under a pile of rotting detritus that used to be a small church. The door may be found again someday. It may even be open. But one thing is for damn sure. It sure as hell won't be because of me. Sorry.
Highway to hell. Highway to hell.
Yeah, it would be Highway to Hell. I was thinking of the ending of The Matrix where it's just like immediately just like heavily distorted guitars.
Yeah. Good point.
All right.
This is like a
this is like a sigh.
This is like a roller coaster of like depression, right? Like the exasperated sigh is just like, I don't know. I don't know what I expected. I guess I expected something else, but at the same time, I'm not surprised.
I love that she decided to just go like, in the end, we decided to become superheroes. So I guess that's how we spend our days. Very good. Very funny.
Yeah, the ending kind of walk off into the sunset, but like not quite hang up the hat. Like like I might come back to these characters as they hunt down other demons and other evil people that worship them someday. And like, I don't know, author, I hope I never read those stories in the nicest way. Some stories are left better as just a part 1 that you never write part 2 or 3 to.
I love that we read this. I love how it really just
Of course you did.
I did. I had to, man. It's made for me. It was, it's my story. It was made for me. Like all this, almost all the stories you've given me, they've been excellent. They've either been just like good, period, or they have slowly spiraled. She killed the demon, or just kept it in a hole, which apparently wraps it. Can we talk a little bit about, before we give too many final thoughts about it? Can we talk about the trapdoor? Which he said that he couldn't ever get closed, but now he can.
Suddenly he closed it in the last act. Yeah.
And has a sigil blessed by God himself. Like there's a whole thing about second son of a Roman Catholic from Assisi. So I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know what's happening in the end of this story, honestly. I also like the idea of saying, all of the things that this guy invented disappeared, including one fake invention and one real invention that currently exists. So it's like, there's inductive charging. I can put my phone on a little plate and it charges very slowly.
That still exists.
That's still out there. And also it sucks. It's not one of the things that I would miss if it disappeared. Oh man. Oof. What a story. Do you have any thoughts? What are your thoughts? How are you feeling?
Depressed.
Man. Do I get points? The demon screamed. It didn't talk, but it did scream.
That is a good point.
It made noise out of its mouth. It probably can't talk if it really wanted to. Kind of like a Tarzan situation where it would to learn if it found love, maybe. No.
I'm gonna give it to you because even if like literally like I think uh,
This is, I've never seen you so dejected. Heard you so dejected.
no, it's I keep going back and forth, and there's this part of me that, like, whenever discussion happens, it's just like, what would you do better, right? Like, not that I know better. It's just it's a fun frame of reference. Almost any critical, person consuming something often sits here and thinks, armchair, like, what I would have done different.
With this one, you really gotta you just gotta scrap the whole thing and start again. With the second and third parts, I think I don't know if there's any satisfying way to do broadly what the author has done with the second and third parts of the story. I think there's got to be a different. There's just something else you could write about.
I'm literally on the same wavelength. I'm just like, I wouldn't have gone there. I just wouldn't have gone there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right. Maybe making his. I big pet peeve of mine, and it's a very and apologies to anyone who is like a big Marvel head, but it's a very Marvel coded thing to do, where you have a character who kind of knowingly points out like a media trope, and then just does it anyway. Where the guy's like, I'm not gonna monologue to you, and then she's like, oh yeah, you will, and he's like, well, actually, you're right. I'm gonna do that now. Like, what? Why does it need to? We can't discover this through some other way. There's no, there's no story that can be found around the world that we're living in, or like she can't like put some pieces together. No, he's gotta take 6 paragraphs to tell you how he really loved to code. Man.
I definitely wouldn't have done that. What an interesting maniacal villain. Fucking Megamind over here.
I think it's so, and it's like tonally so strange too when you're talking about this. Like, it's mostly about like backwoods Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden it's like, and then there's a tech mogul. I'm like, out here? Why? Where did he get lost?
He's been hunting down the demon.
Yeah, but like he could have taken it back to, like, let's be real. A tech bro would have grabbed Metaraxis and then taken it back to San Francisco or something. Or some other, like Austin, perhaps. He wouldn't have been like, well, I found it in Pennsylvania, so I guess I live in Pennsylvania now. It's a real weirdo move. Now, if you were a coal baron or perhaps a chocolate mogul, if it were Milton Hershey, I think that would have been a fucking incredible.
I actually love the story of Hershey, so it's actually really funny that you said that. He was a good guy.
He was a crazy character.
He was.
He owned like it. Hershey was basically like a company town.
Yes, and he also like owned like families. Yeah. He was like, here's an orphanage for boys who don't have parents. They're all mine.
Yeah, no, like real 20th century mogul hours, where you can just like build a town and then be like, yeah, I'm going to provide you with all of the entertainment and all of the food, and you're going to name your children after me, the benevolent man who runs the chocolate factory. So good. Also, his middle name is Snavely, which makes his full name Milton Snavely Hershey, which is like, you just don't get names like that anymore. I think a sort of like 170-year-old Milton Hershey would have been a really funny villain, you know.
Oh,
And
what if the machinations were really that he just wanted to make some delicious fucking chocolate, so he made a deal with Grimbus to make that happen?
I would respect it more than microsurgery. I know it's not saving as many lives, but people get really into chocolate. You know, people get obsessed with chocolate. So I'd buy it. Whew. Man, what a story. What a time to be alive.
I'm seeing what else this chick... I've been Googling this chick.
Oh, okay, I see.
I've been seeing what else this chick has been writing. Just out of vague interest.
Spec script for John Wick 3. Nice.
There's a couple of collections of short stories. Again, I'm not like... She's a very talented author. I enjoyed reading it. It's just there's a long list of stories here. And so far oh my god, she wrote Mayhem Mountain. That's awesome. I love that story. I'm now just realizing how many of the stories I've read on this show have been written by her. Betsy the Doll, Borrasca. Let me keep going here.
Betsy the Doll. I feel like, is that one of the ones?
Deepwoods, Disappearance of Ashley Morgan. Read that. Some Mayhem Mountain. That one I fucking love. So I'm actually... Am I surprised? No, because that's a good one where it's like you find out that it's like episode like 40 something or 30 something. You find out that a Walt Disney character who made a theme park, for one of the rides he has like a B side where instead of outloading to like a warehouse where like the track, like the rides, the actual roller coaster train like sits in a warehouse, it instead leads to this underground fucking death chamber where the people on the ride have to decide how they're going to die. It's very Jigsaw-ish, but apparently this dude was just like touched and he was just sitting there fucking jerking it the entire time watching these people kill themselves. It's a great story, but it's hilarious now in retrospect that she's the one who wrote it. 'Cause again, I feel like the guy who made that theme park and our fucking Jameson Scott went to the same country club. Hell
yeah. School of Sigils and Torture.
Okay, so I honestly haven't read too much of her body of work. I've read the important stuff, it seems. Her series and a couple one-off stories, some better than others. You know, it's funny. The dialogue is kind of the most memorable part across the board because they're all kind of written like CW TV shows where like characters kind of state the obvious as it's happening. You know, again, not to detract. I'm not detracting. Like I watch CW shows. When I say that, I'm not necessarily being a douche. I'm being comparative because no one on fucking No Sleep is trying to be, I don't fucking know, like William Shakespeare or conversely Stephen King. They're all trying to land somewhere in that spectrum of creativity. And sometimes, you know, just sometimes you get a real Danny of a story. And that's where we landed on the spectrum today.
Yeah, it's a style, you know. I think there's so much out there that reads like middlebrow TV, like CW shows, and the like. It's a big, and a lot of like popular fiction also is in that style.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of really like consumable, simplistic shit out there, and more power to the people that make that shit work for them.
I read a book not too long ago called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And let me tell you, I will fight that guy. That guy, I do have something against him.
You want to fist fight him in the streets.
But it's a good example of that writing style, which is just like the dialogue is very on the nose. It's very expositional, right? All of the characters only really talk when they want to progress the story.
Yeah,
plot progression. And I know that people are like, well, but the story's got to progress. But I don't know. I've got thoughts about it. Anyway, he writes in that style, and it's a very popular book. People love it. The plot of that book, though, is so fucking insane, and it only got like I clocked that it couldn't possibly have a decent resolution about halfway through. I was like, I don't think this guy's gonna be able to pull all these threads together, because it's like a time looping murder mystery.
Okay,
where he embodies a different person in this mansion, and he has to relive the day that each of these people lived, and he has to put together the murder and understand who killed Evelyn Hardcastle by the end of his like 8th life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that concept is fine. It's good even. But the direction it goes is outrageous. I would compare it to this story in terms of just like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Just
by
off
the end
the
of
rails about halfway through.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it really jumps the shark for sure. It brings in some concepts that were probably better left on the chopping block, and then doesn't stick the landing at all in the last 10 pages of the book.
It's the type of book where you put it down after reading it and you go, how did this get published?
I wrote a bunch of nasty notes in it, and then I put it in one of those little free library boxes that you find around the city.
Yes. And we need to start antagonizing those. We need to start sharing stuff that's bad in those.
Well, the thing is, like I said, it's a very popular book. People like it. Someone is going to think I'm the most insufferable prick when they pick up this book and they're like, "Oh, look!"
Hopefully, that's what everyone thinks listening to this episode right now.
That I'm as insufferable.
That we're just both insufferable pricks and that can't have fun or have nice things.
The thing is, I had a great time. I think
we both did, and that's what I'm saying. Like, please, please don't think that us interjecting every 2 paragraphs to say something funny is anything but an exercise in us trying to have fun.
For sure.
The story is as the story does, and the author has seen success on various scales in what she does, and I am not in any way holding that against her. I've read so much of her shit on this show, and I cannot say with even a shred of dishonesty that I've done anything but have fun reading her stuff.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, I just really think that I wouldn't have written a part 2 to that part 1 is where I'm sitting.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that when it's almost like growing up. As you get older, there is some stuff in your brain that just starts to kind of fade away. Fade into obscurity. Your thoughts and your memories of when you were 5 just are not relevant when you are now in your 30s. It's just you can't remember what it means to be that young. And for the life of me, this chick met a literal demon that makes it hard for her or people to remember things. And it isn't it ironic that she held on to that for 13, 14 some years just to come out where she came out in chapter 2 and chapter 3. I just in my head, the simpler solution, the easier it would have been for her to just say, and then I forgot Jamie, and it's sad. The end. Because guess what? Explaining that Jamie went from town to town training police at police academies and learning sigils and getting blessings from Italy just really wasn't the answer I was looking for. And hey, you know what? I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
Any closing thoughts, closing notions from you, Ramses?
I think we summed it up pretty well. You know, get home safe. Hug your kids.
Hug your kids. Praise Grimbus.
Praise Grim. Well, don't, keep him in your thoughts. I don't know if we're going to praise him.
Make sure your sigils for Grimbus are intact. Make sure you got your milky wards from Italy. Train it up on your sigil school, your sigil studies. Got to keep that Grimbus in check. We all got a little bit of that Grimbus inside of us that you gotta keep in check. Where do we go from here? Like, genuinely.
I don't know.
Because every time I think I'm taking you in a different direction, we just end back up at, like, Dick Fuck Town. And I know that you love to go there. You live there mentally. You say it's fun to be here. It's fun to be here. I like to visit. I like to visit every now and again, but every once in a while I'm just like, no. I want to go somewhere else, Ramses.
No. Sorry.
No, sorry.
Just not gonna happen.